The sink pipe snapped mid-thread, spraying rusty water across my jeans. I didn't flinch, just grabbed the shut-off valve and twisted. Third time that year. Same pipe, same crack, same shrug from the landlord. It's old, Tom. What do you expect? Lisa stood in the doorway of the garage holding a glass of white wine like she'd wandered in from a magazine cover. No shoes. Hair still damp from a bath I didn't hear her run. I was elbow-deep in tools when she said it, calm as a surgeon. Maybe we should separate for a while, but let's stay friends. She said it like she was handing me a tissue, not a grenade. I kept twisting the wrench. Didn't look up. Didn't ask why. I just nodded once and said, "All right." That was it. No shouting. No pleading. No emotional monologue about how we could fix it. The silence after that word, "all right," lasted longer than any fight we ever had. She stood there like she was waiting for something else. Protest. A dramatic pause. A meltdown, maybe. Instead, I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and walked right past her, straight into the house, to microwave some leftover ribs. Ate them at the kitchen counter. She stood at the top of the stairs for a while. Didn't say anything else. That night, she moved into the guest room. Quietly, as if the lack of drama meant I wasn't paying attention. She didn't know that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. You ever hear someone say, "Let's stay friends," and think they mean it like a safety net? Like you're just gonna hover politely while they figure out who else might be better? Like you're an unpaid backup plan with plumbing experience and emotional availability? Here's the thing. Over 97% of people listen to stories like this and don't subscribe. But if you're still reading, chances are this hit a nerve. Do us a favor. Tap that thumbs up or follow. It helps the team keep telling the stories they can't say out loud. Anyway, back to the moment. The next morning, Lisa brewed 2 cups of coffee. Set them both on the table like nothing had happened. She wore that oversized college hoodie I used to love, sleeves hanging off her hands like some kind of peace treaty. I drank mine, said thank you, and headed to the garage without another word. She didn't follow. She had no idea I'd already made my decision. She thought she was taking space to figure things out. What she didn't realize was, I had nothing left to figure out. I had been living in a loop of ignored effort and one-sided compromise for over a decade. The only thing she did by asking for space was give me permission to stop playing house in a place that hadn't felt like home for years. Over the next few days, I noticed small things. She still sent me articles she thought were interesting, like I was a coworker she was trying to impress. Still asked if I'd be home for dinner, like we were roommates with benefits. But she also stopped wearing her wedding ring. Thought I didn't notice. Thought I'd ask. I didn't. One night, I heard her giggling softly on the phone in the guest room. Probably a friend. Maybe not. I didn't care. That's not apathy. That's clarity. When you've carried the emotional load for years, there's a strange peace in setting it down. Lisa thought she had the upper hand because she'd initiated the separation. She thought I'd orbit around her while she did self-discovery yoga and flirted with ex-colleagues over cocktails. She wanted a safe zone to dabble in other lives without the risk of losing mine. But I wasn't orbiting anymore. She'd given me the word. Separate. I was just following instructions. And unlike her, I understood the second half of what she said too. Let's stay friends. Okay. Friends don't fix your sink. Friends don't pay your half of the bills. Friends don't wait up, worry, or wonder. Friends don't suffer silently while you audition replacement husbands. She'd made the rules. I just decided to play by them. Relentlessly, coldly, politely, and she had no idea just how far I'd take it. The first text came at 8:12 a.m. the next day, just as I was tightening the lug nuts on my truck in the driveway. Lisa, hey, can you fix the bathroom light before my sister gets here Friday? It's still flickering. I stared at the message a full minute before typing back. Me, that sounds like something a husband would do. 3 dots. They popped up, blinked, vanished. Then again. She was typing, deleting, retyping. Finally, Lisa. Haha, you're funny. I didn't respond. That was Wednesday. By Friday night, the light still flickered. She tried to screw in a new bulb herself, wrong wattage, wrong base. The socket sparked. She called a handyman. He charged her $85 to confirm what I could have told her for free. The next grocery run, I came home with exactly what I needed. Chicken breast, black beans, tortillas, coffee, protein bars. She opened the fridge, looked around like someone robbed us. Did you forget the oat milk? No, I said. I don't drink oat milk. Same with the laundry. I used to throw hers in with mine, fold her cardigans the way she liked, hang-dry her workout leggings. Now I washed my own clothes, dried them, folded them. Her stuff sat untouched in the basket for days. Is the detergent in the garage? She asked once. Should be, I said. I didn't get it for her. Then came the bills. We'd always had this silent agreement. I paid the major ones. She picked up odds and ends. Subscriptions, decorations, that one boutique wine club she forgot she subscribed to. But now, I dropped the electric bill on the counter with a sticky note. Split equals $74.93. She stared at it like it was written in Greek. Wait, you want me to Venmo you? She asked. If we're friends, that's what friends do, right? Her laugh this time was thinner, shorter, like a smile that didn't reach the eyes. That weekend, I made steak and roasted vegetables for myself. She came down around 7, nose in the air. Smells amazing. It is, I said, without offering a bite. She opened the fridge. No leftovers. Just a note on a Tupperware container. Meal prep mine. I could feel her looking at me, like she was trying to recalibrate what this was now. But I stayed seated, watching baseball, sipping a beer I knew she hated the taste of. This wasn't cruelty. It was accuracy. Lisa had suggested we separate, but stay friends. The problem is, she expected me to be the kind of friend who did all the things a husband does, minus the intimacy, the respect, and the commitment. She thought I'd cling. Wait, fix, pay, carry her comfort while she explored her discomfort. Instead, I did what actual friends do. I set boundaries. And here's the part she couldn't wrap her head around: how quickly I adapted. Because once I stopped doing things out of obligation, I realized just how much I'd done out of fear. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of triggering one of her cold spells. Fear of being accused of being controlling just for having needs of my own. Now, the boat was gone. The ocean was calm. And Lisa? She was still standing on the dock, holding a paper map in a GPS world. I noticed her mood shift slowly. No big blow-ups. Just subtle changes. Her texts got shorter. She started sighing louder. Left cabinet doors open longer. You know the type. Passive-aggressive rituals dressed up as forgetfulness. She tried testing the waters once. Asked if I wanted to grab dinner together, like old times. I said, friends don't go on dates. Remember? She blinked, nodded, and said, right, of course, of course. She thought I'd play the role until she decided if I was worth reclaiming. But the longer she waited, the more obvious it became. I wasn't just stepping back. I was stepping out. And the world I was walking into didn't revolve around her anymore. The invitation came printed on soft cream cardstock. Lisa never trusted digital RSVPs, said they were too impersonal. She taped it to the fridge like it was a museum exhibit. Wine and bites, Saturday 6 p.m., our place. Come hungry, our place. It was Wednesday when she floated it past me. You'll be around Saturday, right? Just a small thing. My team's been pushing to get together. I didn't look up from my tablet. Who's hosting? She frowned. What? You said our place. But I'm not really part of your work team, am I? Well, no, but you live here. I cut her off with a shrug. Friends don't throw each other parties, right? She paused. It's just wine and apps. You've helped before. That was before, I said, standing up. Now we're just two people who split detergent and live under the same roof. Saturday arrived. She moved through the house like a frantic event planner who fired the entire staff. Chopping, rearranging throw pillows, lighting candles she found in a drawer and hadn't tested since Christmas. I walked past the kitchen once. She had goat cheese smeared across her knuckles and was muttering something about rosemary. You okay? I asked. She turned with a tight smile. Perfect. Just hosting my colleagues like a grown-up. No apron? I asked, gesturing to her silk top. She ignored that. By 5:30, the wine was breathing, the playlist was on, and Lisa was downing a pre-party Chardonnay while nervously straightening cocktail napkins. At 6 sharp, I walked out the front door with my keys and a duffel bag. She blinked. Wait. Where are you going? I paused. To enjoy a quiet evening. Friends respect each other's space. Remember? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I didn't tell her where I was going. Didn't need to. The party went on without me. I know because I came back around 10 and the scent of burnt quiche was still hanging in the air like a disappointed relative. A few wine bottles half empty. shoes piled by the door. The TV in the den was still on, paused on some rom-com she probably played for ambience. She didn't greet me. I heard dishes clinking softly from the kitchen. I went upstairs. That night, as I lay in bed, my bed, since she still occupied the guest room, I checked my phone. Notification from Natalie. It was a photo. Me standing beside her at a local tapas bar. My hand wasn't on her waist or anything scandalous. But I was laughing, and she was leaning just slightly in. Casual. But not that casual. Her caption? Just a single word. Unexpected. I knew Lisa would see it. Eventually. She saw it sooner than I thought. Around midnight, I heard her footsteps in the hallway. A pause. Then her door creaked open and shut. No knock. No questions. But in the morning, her energy had changed. The kitchen was quiet. Her coffee mug sat untouched. She barely looked up when I walked in. I poured my own. No words exchanged. Then she said, without turning around, "You saw Natalie last night." "Yup," I said. Silence. "She's my friend." "Used to be," I replied, sipping slowly. "But that was back when you were still my wife. Now we're just friends. Remember?" She stared out the window, jaw tense. "You're doing this on purpose." "Doing what?" "Living?" Lisa wanted the benefits of independence without the price. She expected space without loneliness, freedom without consequence. But here's the kicker. When you let go of someone you thought you'd always have, you better hope no one else finds value in what you took for granted. And right now, Natalie was treating me like a man worth more than his repair skills and grocery runs. Lisa, she was beginning to realize the guest list wasn't the only thing that felt empty. It was the kind of morning where silence had a sharp edge. Overcast. No music. Just the click of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of wood settling. Lisa wandered into the living room barefoot, cradling a cup of green tea, wearing that faded university hoodie like it still made her someone else. She was supposed to be working remotely, but her own laptop was dead. Battery shot. Charger frayed. She muttered something under her breath. Opened the hall closet. Found my old Lenovo. Beat up. Paint flecked from a shelf project I'd never finished. She plugged it in and opened the lid. Not even thinking. It had no password. Chrome opened to my email. Default behavior. She minimized the window quickly, too quickly, and landed on the messaging app. That's when it pinged. Natalie. The message popped up like a ghost mid-sentence. Last night was surprising. In a good way. Smiley face. Lisa froze. The cursor blinked patiently in the chat window. For a second, she just stared, as if blinking would somehow make it go away or reframe it. She closed the laptop. Not slammed, just closed. Quietly, like the sound might betray her. Her hands were shaking. Not rage yet. Something worse. Disbelief. It wasn't the emoji that did it. It was the ellipses, the hesitation, the suggestiveness, the way Natalie had always been careful with her words. Precise, polished. But this was the kind of message you sent when guards had come down and barriers had been willingly, maybe enthusiastically, crossed. Lisa sat on the armrest of the couch. Tea forgotten. Natalie, her best friend since undergrad. Maid of honor. The one who once drunkenly vowed to be Lisa's emergency contact even at age 90. The one who skipped their last lunch date. Who didn't text her back for 4 days after Lisa confided that she and Tom were taking space but staying close. The one who showed up late to her coworker party with an excuse about a delayed haircut and didn't eat anything. Who left early and avoided eye contact. Lisa began scrolling through her own memory like it was a badly written script. That time she came home and found 2 wine glasses in the dishwasher. One with lipstick. Not her shade. She'd assumed he was just drinking alone with old cups. Now she wondered if Natalie had ever crossed that threshold while Lisa was at yoga. Or that text from Tom a week ago. Out for drinks. Don't wait up. She hadn't even thought to ask with who. She had handed them both the alibi. The language. The permission. Separated, but still friends. That was her phrase. Her terms. Her chess move. Only now she realized, Tom wasn't playing chess. He was playing poker. And somewhere along the way, he'd gone all in while she was still bluffing with a busted hand. She stood up, walked slowly to the bathroom, and stared at herself in the mirror. No tears yet. Just the dawning awareness that something had shifted. And it wasn't subtle. It was like watching a bridge collapse in slow motion. You hear the first crack, see the first cable snap and suddenly realize you were standing on it the whole time. What hurt wasn't just the betrayal. It was that she had created the loophole they were now walking through together. The emotional paperwork had her name all over it. And now, the woman who used to swear they'd never let a man come between them was texting ellipses and smiley faces to that same man before 9 a.m. Lisa closed the bathroom door and locked it. Not because she was hiding, but because for the first time since the separation, she felt completely, undeniably alone. And the worst part? It was no one's fault but her own. Lisa rehearsed the call for 2 hours before dialing. Lines like, "I just want to clear the air," and "I feel like there's been some distance lately," floated through her head while she paced the living room, gripping her mug like it was a weapon. She even considered waiting another day, hoping the storm of her thoughts would pass. But the message wouldn't unsend. The dots couldn't be unseen. She finally tapped the screen and held the phone to her ear. Natalie picked up on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Lisa. Wow, haven't heard from you in a bit." Lisa forced a smile even though no one could see it. "Yeah, I know. I just thought maybe we could catch up. It's been a weird few weeks." Natalie's voice softened. "Totally. Want to grab coffee?" "No," Lisa said too fast, then caught herself. "I mean, can we just talk? Now?" A pause. "Sure. What's on your mind?" Lisa exhaled sharply through her nose, steadying herself. "Are you seeing Tom?" Silence. She could hear Natalie breathe in. Not a gasp. More like the deliberate intake of someone calculating whether to lie or not. "I mean," Lisa added, voice higher than she liked, "I saw your message. On his laptop. About last night." Another pause. Then Natalie replied, calm and even. "I didn't think you'd still be checking his messages." That wasn't a denial. Lisa's voice tightened. "Are you sleeping with him?" Natalie sighed, but there was no shame in it. "Look, Lisa, you told me you and Tom were separated, that you were taking space, that you were friends now. So, I assumed it was okay." Lisa blinked, stunned at how smoothly her words had been turned back on her. "We're still married." Natalie's reply came like a knife dipped in ice. "You said separated. And friends. I didn't invent those words, you did. It was true." And hearing them thrown back like legal jargon from a defense attorney made her stomach twist. "I didn't mean you could just slide in while we were figuring things out," Lisa snapped. "Were you?" Natalie asked. "Figuring things out?" Lisa froze. "Because from where I stood," Natalie continued, voice unwavering, "you checked out long before you asked for space. You told everyone Tom was your roommate with history. You rolled your eyes when his name came up. So, forgive me if I believed you." Lisa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Natalie added, "He didn't chase me, Lisa. I didn't seduce him. We just found each other. In the vacuum you left. It wasn't anger. It was worse, it was conviction." And Lisa suddenly realized she had no weapon to wield. No moral ground to stand on. Not after the dinners she skipped. The birthdays she phoned in. The nights she claimed space and treated him like a background appliance. Tom hadn't cheated. He'd just accepted the terms. Literally. She felt like a child trying to argue with a contract she signed but never read. "Did he tell you about us?" Lisa asked, quieter now. "Yes," Natalie replied. "He said you wanted friendship. So that's what he gave you." "But not what I meant," Lisa muttered, more to herself than anyone. "I know," Natalie said. "But that's not how real life works, is it?" Another silence. Heavy this time. "I didn't call to fight," Lisa said finally. "You called to reclaim something you threw away," Natalie replied. "And I get it. That's hard." Click. Natalie hung up. Lisa sat there staring at the lock screen, her reflection warped in the black glass. For once, she didn't cry. She couldn't. Because now she understood words weren't just things you said to soften a blow. They were contracts. And she'd written her own exit. Lisa turned the ignition key once, twice. The third time, the engine sputtered, coughed, and died with a pathetic wheeze like it was too tired to pretend anymore. She sat in the driver's seat of her aging Prius, wrapped in a scarf she used to joke made her look artsy, staring at the dashboard like it owed her an apology. She was already late for a 10 a.m. team meeting at the office she'd been avoiding ever since her coworkers stopped asking about Tom. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. Calendar reminder, client sync, 30 minutes. She rolled her eyes and sent a quick text. "Lisa, Hey, the Prius won't start again. Can you take a look? She waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. She called. Straight to voicemail. The message played in Tom's voice, calm, even, professional. The one he recorded after I suggested he stop using the joke version where he sang Sinatra. She tried again. Voicemail. Again. Now her coffee had gone cold. Her leg bounced involuntarily. She wasn't just stranded. She was dismissed. She set her phone down and stared out the window. For years, she didn't have to worry about this kind of thing. Tom handled it: batteries, oil changes, slow leaks, weird rattles. He even took the car to emissions once and surprised her by getting it detailed on the way back. She barely noticed. Just tossed him the keys and said, "Thanks." Now she felt the absence like gravity. Around 8 p.m., her phone buzzed again. A photo. Tom had sent it. Her car on a flatbed tow truck, halfway up the ramp. Parked outside Davidson Auto, the repair shop near their old brunch spot. Standing beside it, smiling casually, hand in her coat pocket like this was a weekend errand. Natalie. She wore Lisa's old knit beanie, the one she used to wear on chilly hikes. The caption? Just one word. Handled. Lisa stared at the screen for a full minute. Then another. She wasn't tagged. There was no follow-up. No thought you'd want to know. No explanation of how Natalie got involved or who called the tow truck. Because she already knew. Tom hadn't responded to her cry for help. But he'd answered Natalie's. Or maybe she didn't even have to ask. That was the worst part. Not the silence. Not even the cold efficiency of being replaced. It was how effortless it all looked. Like she'd never been needed in the first place. She turned off her phone and sat in the quiet. The room felt colder than usual, though the thermostat hadn't moved. She stood slowly, walked to the kitchen, and opened the cabinet. Still half full: lentils, old pasta, 2 cans of chickpeas she bought during a health kick. She used to tease Tom for his over-organized spice rack. Labeled. Alphabetical. Now she realized she hadn't touched cumin in months. She'd spent so much time assuming support was her birthright, not something earned, not something shared. That night, while boiling water for plain noodles, she found herself staring at the empty hook where the garage keys used to hang. He'd taken them last week, quietly. She didn't even notice until now. Everything had changed, and yet nothing had screamed. No slamming doors, no shouting. Just the subtle vanishing of a life she no longer had access to. The emotional scaffolding had been dismantled piece by piece, and she hadn't noticed until the structure collapsed. She was no longer the woman who got her car fixed, her bills sorted, her problems solved. Natalie was. And Tom? He didn't even look back. It started with a single email. Subject line: past due notice, rent payment. Reminder number 2. Lisa blinked at the screen. Reminder number 2? She never saw the first. She scrolled through her inbox, swiping away spam, newsletters, 2 unread emails from her yoga studio. One from her cousin inviting her to a baby shower she had no interest in attending. Then she found it, buried under a digital coupon for candles she didn't need. Reminder number 1. Your rent payment is overdue. The date? 12 days ago. Her stomach dropped in that slow, sickening way only adult failure brings. She opened the tenant portal. The balance glared back. $1,275, outstanding. $85, late fee added. She didn't understand. Rent was auto-drafted. It always had been. Except, Tom had handled that. The bank account tied to the portal was his. She remembered now. He set it up years ago, after she bounced a check paying for new curtains and forgot to tell him. He took over the bills quietly. Not out of spite, but out of sheer, exhausted practicality. Now he was gone. Not physically, his truck was still parked in the driveway some nights. But logistically, financially, operationally, he'd already vacated. And Lisa had nothing in place. She went into her own bank app. Her checking account balance sat lower than she thought. Lower than she wanted to admit. 2 boutique subscriptions still running: gym autopay, Hulu, something called Floral Crate she hadn't seen arrive in months. The utility site wasn't any kinder. Electric, past due. Water payment declined. Internet partial payment received. She had been assuming that Tom would keep handling things. Because that's what he always did. Quietly. Without applause. Without reminders. He was the one who remembered due dates, set alerts, made spreadsheets. The man never once forgot to schedule a payment. And she had confused his consistency for obligation. She used to joke that he was boring with money, that he tracked receipts like a retired accountant, that he needed a hobby. Now she was Googling how to budget after separation. At midnight with her phone plugged into the wall of a house she couldn't afford without the man she'd put in the friend zone. A creeping panic set in. She opened her Venmo app. $57. That was it. A few paybacks from coworkers for lunch. She considered texting Tom. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Can we talk about rent? She typed it, then deleted it. Typed again. Did you cancel the rent autopay? Deleted that too. She tried to craft a version that didn't sound needy. A version that didn't confirm she had underestimated everything. But the truth was brutal in its clarity. She didn't even know how to pay the damn gas bill. There was a time she could afford to be careless. Tom had caught every ball she dropped, without scolding, without complaint. Now she was standing in the middle of their split-level home, financially naked, with no one to blame but herself. She opened her freezer, empty except for 2 vodka mini bottles and a frostbitten lean cuisine. She'd assumed they'd still be sharing groceries. But Tom had stopped adding to the fridge weeks ago. She didn't notice until it was too late. Just like the bills. Just like everything. And now the shame wasn't just personal. It was systemic. She'd spent years being proud of her independence. Of her degrees, her career, her curated lifestyle. But somewhere along the line, independence became an aesthetic, not a practice. Tom had been the scaffolding. She had been the banner. Now the structure was gone. And the wind was howling. Too proud to ask for help. Too cornered to pretend it wasn't unraveling. She pulled a throw blanket around her shoulders and stared at the glowing screen, blinking back the sting behind her eyes. This wasn't space. This wasn't freedom. This was weight. And it was hers now. All of it. The maitre d' recognized her immediately. "Good evening, Ms. Anders," he said with that familiar smile. The kind reserved for long-time regulars who tip well and never send food back. "Table for one tonight?" Lisa smiled faintly, tugging her coat tighter around her. "Yes, quiet corner if you can." The place hadn't changed. Same low lighting. Same polished wood tables. Same soft jazz humming just loud enough to drown out thoughts. It was her favorite place to disappear. She used to come here with Tom. Before work dinners became the norm and silence between them settled like dust on an unused piano. She hadn't been in months. Not since the separation. Not since space became a silent agreement to stop showing up together. Tonight wasn't about nostalgia. It was about escape. From late notices. From frozen lean cuisines. From the cruel clarity of financial spreadsheets. She wanted one warm meal served without questions. Just wine, steak, and solitude. She followed the host to the back corner, her usual spot, when she heard it. A laugh. Tom's laugh. She hadn't realized how much she missed it until she heard it from across the room. 2 octaves deeper than usual. Tinged with something she hadn't seen on him in months. "Ease." She turned. And there they were. Far table by the fireplace. 2 glasses of red. A half-empty bottle in the center. Natalie's hand on the table. Fingers laced with his. She was mid-laugh, face tilted toward him like he was the only man in the world. Lisa stopped walking. Natalie caught sight of her first. Her expression faltered. Just slightly. Enough to register recognition, but not enough to move. Tom never even turned his head. He must have seen her. He always had that sixth sense about her presence. But not tonight. Tonight he was busy. With someone who wasn't a placeholder. The host, confused by Lisa's pause, gestured politely toward her table. "Everything all right?" She nodded. "Fine." She sat. Ordered a glass of wine she didn't want. From across the room, she could hear them talking. Not the words, but the rhythm. Easy. Familiar. That quiet language people speak when the tension's gone and they're not pretending anymore. Lisa stared down at the menu, eyes unfocused. The letters swam. She didn't need to read it. She knew every dish. Knew which ones Tom used to order. Knew Natalie hated mushrooms. She also knew neither of them gave a damn that she was sitting 20 feet away, heart cracking like glass under a slow tire. The waiter came. She ordered the filet mignon. Medium rare. Same as always. It arrived. She didn't touch it. Not a bite. The steak bled quietly on the plate while she stared at the edge of her wine glass, running her finger along the rim like she was tracing the outline of a life she no longer fit into. Across the room, Natalie leaned in and whispered something. Tom smiled. Not the polite smile he used to give Lisa when she asked about his day. Not the strained smile that followed one of her passive jabs. This was different. This one reached his eyes. Lisa blinked back something bitter. She stood, slipped her card into the black folder without waiting for the check, and left enough to cover the untouched meal plus a generous tip. She didn't wait for change. Didn't look back. Outside, the air was colder than she expected. She pulled her coat tighter again, crossed the parking lot alone, and slid behind the wheel of the car she'd finally gotten back from the shop, paid for by splitting rent late and canceling her massage membership. As she turned the key, her reflection in the rearview mirror looked smaller. Not older, not weaker, just outsized by a life that had moved on without her permission. Inside that restaurant, Tom hadn't replaced her with someone younger or prettier. He'd replaced her with someone who showed up, who listened, who looked at him like he mattered, not like he was background noise in a curated marriage. And worst of all, they hadn't done it quietly. They'd done it out loud, in public, under warm lights and open menus, at her table. The world hadn't ended. It had just excluded her. And no one even flinched. The subject line was sterile. Separation agreement. Final draft attached. Lisa clicked it instinctively, like it was just another work email. No warning. No context. No warning text or, hey, just giving you a heads up. Just Tom's name, the timestamp, 7:12 a.m., and a PDF from a law firm she didn't recognize. The body of the message was short. Lisa, please find the finalized version of our separation agreement attached. My attorney's contact information is listed below. Let me know if you'd like to have yours. Get in touch. Best, Tom. No emotion. No anger. No, I'm sorry it came to this. It read like an office memo. She stared at it for nearly 10 minutes, waiting for her brain to reframe it as something less final, less real. He couldn't be serious. They hadn't talked. Not really. Not since the beginning. They hadn't shouted, hadn't thrown plates or burned letters or said final things they'd regret. They'd just taken space, stayed friends. She thought. She picked up the phone, hands trembling slightly. The first call went to voicemail. So did the second. By the third, she didn't leave a message. She just typed, Lisa, I thought we were figuring things out. It took 20 minutes for his reply. Tom, I thought we were friends, but I don't treat friends like I treat strangers. No period. No signature. Just that sentence. It hit harder than anything loud ever could. She tried to reply, typed half a dozen things. We never talked about ending it. Is this because of Natalie? Can we pause before we finalize? But nothing came out right. Every word felt like a child tugging at an adult's sleeve, asking to stay up late after the bedtime had already been set. The irony was painful. She had insisted they stay friends. Used that exact phrase to avoid confrontation, to give herself a runway, a safety net. And now, Tom was honoring the terms. In full. She opened the PDF. It was comprehensive. Bullet points, clean formatting, mutual asset division. Her half of the equity in the house clearly listed. The joint savings split. His offer to take full responsibility for the car he still drove, in exchange for her assuming the remaining subscription debts on the cards still in her name. It was all so calm, so sorted. And the lawyer's tone in the email was warm, neutral, professional. Like this wasn't a heartbreak, it was a checklist. Lisa closed the document and walked to the kitchen, staring at the half-finished mug of tea she forgot she'd made. The silence in the house, once something she enjoyed, now sounded like distance, engineered and permanent. She tried to remember the last time they'd really spoken. Not just exchanged words. Spoken. It wasn't the party. Not the groceries. Not even the night she saw him with Natalie. It was weeks ago. Maybe months. Because somewhere in all the silence, Tom had decided she wasn't pausing the marriage. She was ending it. And now he was simply matching her energy with precision. The difference? He didn't stall. He finished. She refreshed her inbox 3 times. No follow-up. No, are you okay? No second message clarifying that this was just procedural. Because it wasn't. Lisa had spent weeks treating the separation like a strategic delay, a chapter break, a controlled experiment. But Tom? He'd written the final paragraph. And all that was left for her to do was sign. It wasn't planned. Lisa didn't wake up that morning intending to go to Tom's new place. But after a week of unread texts, ignored emails, and a silence that felt like suffocation, she found herself driving across town without music, without makeup, and without a speech rehearsed. Just raw instinct and a rising panic that everything she'd once considered temporary was hardening into permanence. The sun was low when she pulled up. His place was small, modest, quiet, newer than their old house. There were fresh tulips in a pot by the front door. She noticed that detail with a strange sort of grief. Tom never liked flowers. Not before. She knocked 3 times. Not hard. Just enough. Footsteps. A shadow through the frosted glass. The door creaked open. Natalie. Hair tied back. No makeup. Socks. Comfortable in a place that Lisa hadn't even been invited to. For a second, they just stared at each other. Then Natalie stepped slightly to the side. Behind her stood Tom. Not surprised. Not tense. Just still. Lisa's voice was thin. I want to talk. Tom met her eyes. Then spoke. Clear and quiet. You wanted friendship, he said. And this is what that looks like. Lisa blinked. Stunned. That's not. But her voice caught. She wanted to cry. But the tears wouldn't come. Not in front of them. Tom, she said, gripping the edge of the doorframe. You can't seriously be doing this. We didn't end anything. We were taking space. You took space, he said evenly. I built a life. Natalie stood beside him, silent, not smug, not defensive, just steady. Lisa tried again. We're still married. Tom shook his head slowly. Not anymore. The papers are signed. My lawyer filed them this morning. Her knees almost buckled. It felt like someone had flipped the script while she was still memorizing the first act. She opened her mouth to argue, to say you moved on too fast or this isn't fair or she was my friend first. But the words wouldn't land, because she'd made the first move. She was the one who said separated. She was the one who said friends. She was the one who assumed time meant control. And now, staring at the man she thought would always orbit her, she saw it. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was free. The kind of free that doesn't yell. That doesn't need permission. I just thought, she started. Tom stepped forward slightly. Not unkind. Just final. You thought I'd wait. Pause. I did, Lisa. I waited through excuses. Through neglect. Through cold shoulders and strategic silences. I waited while you figured out if I was worth loving. And when you asked for space, I gave it to you. But I didn't stand still in it. She pressed her lips together, willing herself not to break. I didn't want it to end like this, she whispered. It didn't, he said. You just never noticed it already had. And then, gently, like closing the final page of a book that's been sitting unfinished for years, he shut the door. No slam. No last jab. Just a click. Lisa stood there for a long time. The wind picked up. A dog barked in the distance. She looked at the tulips one last time. So ordinary. So alive. Then turned. And walked away.